Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our presentation entitled Up Your Game with Nutrition, Fueling for Sport. Here's a lovely picture of Tessa and Scott, who will be in Lethbridge tonight, for anyone that didn't know that. So my name's Lauren. I'm a fourth-year dietetic intern from the University of Alberta, and I'm currently doing my public and population health placement in Lethbridge. Previous to this position, I have interned in Brooks and Calgary at the Alberta Children's Hospital. I played 10 years of competitive softball and have earned gold medals at both the Alberta Summer Games as well as the Western Canadian Championships.
Hello, my name is Corey. I'm also a dietetic intern from the University of Alberta who is interning with Lauren in Lethbridge right now. Previous to this position, I have interned in Didsbury and Calgary at the Foothills Medical Center. I have experience advising the University of Alberta's Golden Bears hockey as well as Pandas basketball and rugby team. In addition, I've worked to counsel members of the Edmonton Oilers prospects through the Oilers Development Program. We are looking forward to talking about sports nutrition with all of you today.
Here's just a quick summary of some of the stuff we're going to be going over today. So we're going to talk about what athletes should be eating before, during, and after activity. We'll touch on hydration and talk about sports drinks versus water. And finally, we'll talk about whether or not athletes should be taking nutrition supplements. Athletic performance and good nutrition go hand in hand. To improve one's physical skills, whether that be strength, speed, endurance, or power, athletes not only need to train well, but need to eat well too. Athletes who plan their meals and eat healthy get more out of their training, perform better during competition, refuel their bodies faster, and experience less illness and injury. Ensuring proper nutrition starting from a young age supports both healthy growth, optimal sports performance, and overall health later on in life. For those of you who don't already know, this image represents a healthy plate, which is the primary. Vegetables and fruits should fill half of your plate and can be in fresh, frozen, or canned form with little nutritional differences between these three forms. Protein foods should fill a quarter of your plate, and there's a new focus on choosing plant-based protein options more frequently. Whole grains should fill the remaining quarter of your plate and are less processed and a better source of fiber than their white or whole wheat counterparts. They can also help to reduce the risk of stroke, colon cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. The healthy plate is applicable to all populations and can help athletes to make sure that they are eating well-balanced meals. Another important point that the new food guide emphasizes that we will circle back to later on in this presentation is making water your drink of choice. The most important nutrients that impact sports performance are carbohydrates, protein, and water. An athlete cannot perform optimally without these three needs being met. Here we are going to use the healthy plate concept to identify where athletes should look for certain macronutrients. Both vegetables and fruit, as well as whole grains, are good sources of carbohydrates. If the name didn't already give it away, protein foods are obviously the best source of protein for athletes, but can also contribute some carbohydrates as well. Carbohydrates are broken down and stored in the muscles as something called glycogen, which gives your body quick access to fuel during activity. This is important so that you don't get too tired and have enough energy to sustain you throughout the entire activity. So here we have a quick poll that should come up on your screen, and later on in the presentation we'll be covering the topic of what to eat before, during, and after activity, at which point we'll be talking about when you should eat different amounts of carbohydrates. The suggestions are typically either 30 grams, 60 grams, or 90 grams, so we wanted to give you an idea of what 30 grams of carbohydrates look like, so you're better able to visualize how you might construct snacks made up of the different amounts of carbohydrates. So we'll get you to select all of the options that you think contain 30 grams of carbs. Okay, so the ones that are 30 grams are half an English muffin with 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, an orange with a blueberry muffin, and Cheerios with milk. 4 crackers with 4 slices of cheese is too low at only 10 grams of carbohydrates, as cheese contains very little carbohydrates. However, if you added something like a piece of fruit to the snack, it could easily meet 30 grams. Grilled cheese with soup provides 60 grams of carbohydrates, and trail mix provides 70 grams of carbohydrates. So they're significantly higher than 30 grams, but there still may be a place for these during times when suggestions for carbohydrate intake are higher, which will be discussed later on in the presentation. Protein helps with muscle growth and repair, which is important over time, not just on game day, because it can decrease recovery time and help prevent illness and injury. So now we have another poll that should appear on your screen, and we'll ask you to select all of the protein choices. So good job, everyone. Of all these examples, quinoa is the only item that's not considered a protein food, would fall under the whole grains category. As previously mentioned, there is a shift in the new food guide to focusing on plant-based protein foods. Examples of these include beans, peas, lentils, nuts, seeds, nut butters, tofu, and other soy-based proteins like soy beverages. However, eggs, fish, lean meats, and poultry are all still considered healthy choices. At this point, I'm going to pass it off to Corey, who's going to get into nutrition at every stage of the game.
Proper nutrition before, during, and after activity may impact how you feel during activity, how you perform, and how well you recover. This section will delve into what you need to know about nutrition as a tool for athletes to fuel, refuel, and repair their active bodies. Good nutrition and hydration prior to an activity can help to improve mental and physical performance as well as avoid physical discomfort. If properly timed, eating a meal or snack a couple of hours before an activity gives your body time to digest and convert the food into energy to fuel your muscles. There are optimal times to eat before activity. However, these are not hard and fast rules. Every person is different, so you should always test these out on your training days to see how food will affect you beforehand. Ideally, 2 to 3 hours before activity, you want to have 1 fruit, 2 whole grain choices, and 1 protein food. Examples of these foods will be discussed shortly. And as always, stay hydrated with enough water. If you're strapped for time, you can still eat. However, make sure you're not eating this close to competition time. It is usually not recommended to consume food less than 30 minutes before activity, but if you have an hour or 2 before and you don't want as much food as listed in the example on the left, you can opt for just 1 fruit before competition. Nothing changes in terms of the previous messaging of ensuring that you have enough water to stay hydrated. Meals or snacks before an activity should be high in carbohydrates, moderate in protein, low in fat, and low in fiber, as fat and fiber all slow down digestion and can lead to an upset stomach during activity. When trying to determine if a food contains low or high amounts of something, you can look to the nutrition label. Recently, changes have been made to how companies have to present information on nutrition labels, which actually makes it easier for you to identify this information. If something is less than 5% of your daily value, it is low in that nutrient, whereas if it is greater than 15% of your daily value, it is high in that nutrient. For example, a cereal containing greater than 15% of your daily value for fiber would fall into the category of high fiber cereals that are best to avoid before activity. This is probably the most overlooked part of sports nutrition. Many people believe that eating before and after activity are enough. However, if your activity lasts longer than 60 minutes and is high intensity, there are benefits to consuming some small snacks during activity. The extra carbohydrates will help maintain your mental focus and your physical capacity to keep performing. And as always, stay hydrated. Nutrition doesn't come with hard and fast rules because everybody is so different, but here are some points to consider whether or not athletes should eat during an activity. Is it a non-stop endurance activity that lasts longer than 1 hour? If the answer is no, then no extra food is required. If the answer is yes, then 30 to 60 grams of easy to digest carbohydrate can be considered for the athlete. Also, if the athlete only had a small snack or a small breakfast, then 30 to 60 grams of easy to digest carbohydrate can also be considered. Here are some great examples of what to consume during activity if it is required. These foods are convenient and also easily digested. However, remember that every person is different and to experiment to find what works for you. After an activity, your body tries to rebuild its glycogen stores, which are necessary for energy during activity, as well as repair and regrow muscle tissue. Eating the right nutrients and rehydrating soon after you exercise can help your body get this done faster. Just like before activity, there are optimal times for eating after activity. Eating after activity is imperative to help your body recover and restore fuel stores. If they're less than 24 hours before the next activity, eat carbohydrates and protein within 30 minutes of finishing activity. If you have more than 24 hours before the next activity, you can consume a variety of foods based on the new food guide and the healthy plate model at your next regularly scheduled meal time. Many times, following hard physical activity, appetite can be suppressed. In those cases, it may be easier to consume a smoothie or something similar instead of solid foods. So this is our next activity before we jump into hydration. If everyone could please choose what they think is the correct answer. The correct answer is B. No, you will be fine with water. Hydration is important for transporting nutrients to muscles and to control body temperature through sweat. Similar to when we discussed eating during activity, the duration and intensity of the activity helps determine what should be used for hydration. For any activity lasting less than 60 minutes, hydration with water is more than sufficient. However, if you're engaging in a vigorous activity lasting more than 60 minutes, a sports drink can be considered because at this point, your body likely requires a little top up of carbohydrates and electrolytes and fluid to keep performing at optimal levels. Once again, sports drinks are only useful in cases of intense, continuous activity lasting more than 60 minutes, but these are the optimal ranges for nutrients that you should look for when choosing a sports drink. You don't want too little, as this won't be effective in improving performance, but you also don't want too much, as this can have adverse effects such as cramping and buildup of excess micronutrients. Many athletes have the belief that they require significantly higher amounts of protein than the average person, but this is rarely the case. Protein supplements are not necessary if you're consuming a variety of food and include good sources of protein. You should always choose whole foods when possible, as they include many nutrients that supplements lack. Aside from vitamin D, all athletes can meet their vitamin and mineral needs through food alone, provided they are consuming a well-balanced diet based on the food guide and the healthy plate model. Furthermore, there is not enough research about the safety of nutrition supplements, and high doses of some supplements can be unsafe or toxic, especially for our young athletes. Are you in need of more resources? Starting at our website with AHS's Healthy Eating Starts Here includes many ideas for meals and snacks if you need extra resources. Also, there is the Alberta Health Services Sports Nutrition for Youth, a handbook for coaches. It goes through many of the topics that we discussed today, as well as different topics such as vegetarian eating, talking about body image, nutrition supplements, alcohol, and how it relates to sport as well. These are just the steps on how to access the handbook through the Healthy Eating Starts Here website. Included in the handbook are these infographic posters that you can post up in the locker room or hand out to your athletes.
Recreation facilities are foundational in Lethbridge. They are home to one of our largest populations of children and youth outside the school setting. When healthy food and beverage options are available at these facilities, it can have a strong impact on the health of the community and young athletic performance. Our goal is to provide awareness, education, and resources to encourage a greater availability of healthy food and beverage choices in Lethbridge's recreational facilities, including arenas, swimming pools, baseball diamonds, curling rinks, gymnastics centers, soccer centers, and many other venues. We are close to reaching our desired number of surveys on this topic of improving the healthiness of Lethbridge recreation facilities, and we have a number of responses from the general public, but we need the voices of coaches and athletes who are most often using these facilities. In order to make a strong case, we also need athletes who are as passionate about these goals as we are and are willing to speak to stakeholders such as recreation facility executives and city council members. Strong community participation and support will encourage the sale of healthy food and beverages through on-site vending machines, concessions, cafeterias, snack bars, and fundraisers. We invite you and your athletes to take a short survey that will take less than 5 minutes to help us understand what types of food and beverages that customers would like to see available in Lethbridge's recreation facilities. All of the completed surveys will be eligible to be entered into a random draw for a Fitbit, so we thank you in advance for taking the time to provide your feedback. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, Sherry, concerning your question about milk. So, milk is a food that, you are right, contains different types of macronutrients. In the case of athletes, I would say that the protein content of milk is more important than the amount of carbohydrates it provides. The thing with milk is that the carbohydrate contained with it is lactose, and lactose, if consumed, is not as readily available because it needs to be broken down again in the body to get to glucose. So it's not as readily available as a carbohydrate source. Therefore, it's not something that I would actively recommend as like a carbohydrate source for pre-game nutrition. It's very important for post-game when athletes are looking for a source of some amounts of protein to help with that muscle rebuilding. But because of the different kind of sugar contained in milk, is the reason that I would not necessarily recommend it as a pre-game carbohydrate source.
It definitely has carbs and protein, but also based on Canada's food guide, it's classified as a protein food. So we would recommend it more as a protein choice.
Yes, our presentation is recorded. We will make it available. And yeah, it is a great resource if you want to go through this with your sports teams later on. Any other questions, folks? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming to our webinar today. We hope you learned something. And yeah, we really appreciate it.